Welcome to Between Authors. I'm your host, author Adrian Lopez. What is it that excites us as a reader? It's finding that author or book that you may never have heard of, sort of like the treasure hunt as a reader. The goal for my podcast is to bring to you those authors or books that you may never have found, but may have been the treasure you've been hunting for all along. Today on episode 32, I bring to you author Bria Lexor. We're going to discuss a little bit about her, what she's published, what she's working on, and maybe what her plans are for the future. Welcome to the show, Bria.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm glad you're here today. Why don't you start by giving a little bit of an introduction about, your likes or who you are to the viewers?
I'm a multi-genre author. I mostly write in young adult, urban fantasy, and dark fantasy. I have over 60 books published in three different pen names and genres.
Okay. And why don't you give the viewers a little idea as, what influenced you creatively? And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be authors of books. It could be anything, movies, arts, music.
Um, I guess it's like different things. I did grow up drawing a lot, like my own characters, and I wanted to have one as a manga, but I couldn't figure out the story part. So I think that's what got me into writing. So I can figure out how to put that together with my drawing. I'm still in the process of trying to get that put together, but that's how I started my journey.
Is it a plan for you to do a lot of manga, or you just at least want to get one or two out there as a goal, or do you really want to do as one of the side genres that you do?
Just a couple of them, not a whole lot. Just I just wanted to see if I can, try doing something different.
Yeah. No, I completely understand that. I really want to do a comic book version of my werewolf story. Um, but I don't really see myself doing a lot of those or really
Yeah.
going through that a lot. But I do see, that desire to try that because you do see where it really would make sense on some of the storylines for it to happen. So you do have, I was going through your author page and stuff. You do have a lot of books, a lot of different series. So why don't you let me know what books or what series you want to kind of introduce to the viewers, and it could be maybe the best ones you think would really give them an idea of what your style is and what your approach is, or maybe what your favorite ones are.
um, I have, yeah, like you said, I have many series. So I think I will go with the Hell's Guardian Chronicles. That was one of my first series I
Okay,
started as a writer, and it is a complete 7 book series.
okay, and is that under Bria Lexor, or is that a different
Yes,
pen
yes,
name?
Brea
Okay, it's under
Lexor,
Bria.
yes. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So why don't you give the viewers maybe a little synopsis about what the entire series is about, or if you want, you can kind of give us a rundown, like from book one, what the actual progression is.
Um, Book one starts with Crimson Savior, and it follows Zyra Falls. She's a latent vampire, and it just follows her journey as she her powers and everything start to emerge, and she ends up becoming the superheroine vampire. I made sure I wanted a different kind of twist on mine because there's so many vampire series out there, and I'm like, well, what can I do to make mine stand out and be unique and different? And so
Yeah.
I made mine be superheroine vampires.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, that's one of the things I really do appreciate is when authors come from a different angle or something. Um, I appreciate in everything, movies, books, just anything in general, when you come from that different direction, because, even when you love a genre, sometimes you feel that it's always kind of like a template they follow, and you're still gonna love it, right? It's still gonna be
Yeah.
great, but something you like, I really wish it wouldn't go down that direction,
Yeah.
but maybe they took a left turn there instead of doing a right turn. So
Yeah.
I always do appreciate that when that happens. Um, is I'm not familiar with all of your work, but is the main female character always the focus of your stories, or do you kind of rotate back and forth in between the series or the books?
She's like the main character. I do have other series where I do go back and forth between different characters, but for this one, for the most part, she is the
The
main
main
in
one.
all the books.
It,
Yeah.
is it always a main female character though, or you do from different points of view?
Mostly female, but every now and then I will throw a male in.
Yeah, I've mentioned on the podcast before, but I've always appreciated the the stronger female characters,
Yeah.
because I do come from a family of sisters and all nieces. So
Oh
I've
yeah.
always appreciated that. And then, with my wife and everything, I do appreciate when you have that stronger female character, and it's not always, a male character having to come in and save the day or something. So
Yeah.
I do always appreciate that. And that's why I asked that question.
Oh yeah.
If, the majority of your characters were, the main characters were female.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the series, within the 7 books, is there a favorite scene, or even if you have a couple scenes within the book or within the series, and favorite could be however you want to interpret it. It could be how it came together. It could be, the ending of a storyline that you kind of had that you really loved the way it finished, or it could be maybe something you pulled from a memory or emotion that you really enjoyed.
It I don't know. It's kind of hard because this series it did take you know quite a few years to put together, and I just had a lot of fun writing each book.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I guess book four I made well book 4 and 5. Those two have different main characters. I guess you want to say,
Hmm.
but they all like intertwine and mesh really well. So, but yeah, each the characters are just I don't know. It's just this is hard.
It's fine. It's fine. You don't necessarily have to have, or sometimes, like you said, it is sometimes hard to pick that one out. I'll go on the opposite end, because when you write sometimes a series of books, was it originally intended to be multiple books, or was it something that grew as you wrote it? And kind of the part two of that is, was there a part that was kind of hard in writing that, or a scene that maybe you struggled with to carry the storyline, or to get it to maybe the end of all 7 books?
Hmm. Yeah, I when I first started it, I wanted it to be a 6 book series, and ended up being 7 just because I put like a backstory with
Hmm.
it that like led into that series. Like some of the way I write sometimes I merge like some of the different book series together. So like the other characters from one series that were main characters, they would be side characters in another series.
So is it almost like you have maybe not entirely, but you do have maybe like a world built where, like you said, you do have almost like a cameo appearance on a TV show or a movie from a different a different series that's moving in.
Yeah.
And was that an original a goal for yours to have that world to kind of pull from, or is that just kind of happened as you were writing them?
It would just kind of happen. Like that
Mhm.
character just popped in, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess they want to be in this book series, so I'll throw them in there somewhere.
And it does happen. I mean, it does happen where characters come out of nowhere sometimes and just say, I'm in here, so you better start
Yeah.
writing. For that specific series, did you do any specific research for that series of books?
Um, I did like research the different vampire breeds because I didn't want to have like the same ones as like everybody else did. So I was like, I want to pick and choose different types of vampires to use. So that's
Mhm.
what I did. I did like 3 or 4 different kinds.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I appreciate that. I appreciate you coming from the different angles of that. I really do. I really do like that when you do that because it just makes it more interesting, right?
Yeah,
You're not going to automatically assume what's going to happen because it's not the normal vampires that you're used to, right?
yeah,
You can't assume, oh, I know this is going to happen at some point because it kind of always has to, and you take that out of the equation, right? So I really do enjoy when that happens.
yeah.
So that's one series, so that's one approach, right? And that's more a vampire centric series. What is another series or book that would be a good example of your writing style or kind of what your voice is as an author?
Um, hmm. I wrote so many different series because I would like an idea would pop in my head, and I'm like, I have to write book one to that, so that way I have it. So I would have different ones, but let me see. I guess Cardmaster Saga. That
Okay.
one's that a trilogy, and it's also complete.
Okay. And why don't you give us a little synopsis about what that trilogy is about?
It's about the main character's a female. Her name's Mixie, and she ends up going into like a magic store, and a blank box of like a card deck with like nothing on either side ends up having like magical abilities or like magic in it, and they the shopkeeper lets her take it home because those cards actually belong to her. And so like the evil people are trying to get that magic out, and she's the only one that can unleash it. So they end up tricking her and making a card game out of it, and she has to make the cards come to life with her magic.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Again, was that originally planned as a trilogy, or again, was that something that kind of just moved into a trilogy as you wrote it?
It just turned into one. That was one of them, but where I was trying to have the manga, but like I couldn't get the storyline part, so I'm like, I'll just write it as a book and see where it goes from there.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, that's a good point because again, it's a point I like to bring up, usually for the younger writers is to let those stories kind of go where they want to go. Because sometimes that's the best ones that come out is when you allow them to kind of take themselves wherever they want to go. I think sometimes when you structure yourself too much, either with an outline or a plot, personally I feel that's maybe where you get a lot of sometimes the writer's block is you're trying to force stuff to happen rather than just letting the story go where it wants, right?
Yeah.
Has that in general been a case for most of your series or books where the story has kind of you started it, but the story has kind of gone in the direction it felt it wanted to go?
Yeah, that happens a lot, and then I have to try to, backtrack and take what I don't like or doesn't sound right, like out, and try to fix it up.
Yeah, yeah, because sometimes as the story changes, you're like, okay, well, that part in chapter two didn't make sense now because it has nothing to do with anything. So I need to go back and kind of figure out what that is. But it really is interesting how those stories really kind of take a mind of their own, and you're just kind of following along on the ride, almost like the reader, right?
Yeah.
For this series, did you find yourself having maybe a favorite or a hard part of the book? I mean, I know technically the hard part could be that you really originally had planned that for the manga side, um, but when you kind of shifted gears, did it really kind of flow, or did you have any issues on that as you were trying to write it?
No, it actually flowed like pretty easy.
Yeah, yeah. Once you just let it go, right?
Yeah.
Did you do any specific research for that series?
Um, like a little bit, like looking from other card games that were out there, just trying to figure out how to make my own style
Hmm.
and put it in book form.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so that gives us two good examples of your kind of your writing styles or your series. You have the one vampire series, which is 7 books, and then the magic one with the cards, which is a trilogy. Um, why don't you give actually let me ask you this? You said your most of your writing is in dark fantasy, urban fantasy, or just fantasy in general.
Yeah.
As you go into the vampire, it takes a little bit of the horror genre into it as almost like a subcategory. Is that primarily what your genre is going to be in terms of your writing?
Yeah. Um, I like horror, and I do put like some parts of those, like that type of element, into my books,
Hmm.
because like I want to hook the reader in like right away. So I usually, in all of my books, I try to have like action going like right from the start.
Yeah, to hook them in.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there another genre that maybe you would want to attempt in the future, or is this really where you say this really is not only what I like, but kind of my wheelhouse for my writing?
Yeah. Most of my books are in these two categories, but I in my other two pen names I have um some sports romance and like some contemporary romance.
Okay. Is that why you did the separate pen names to kind of keep
Yeah.
the genre separate? Okay.
Yeah.
Did you find you like it that way? I mean, as your decision, or at some point did you say, oh, maybe I should have just put it all together?
No, it's I like it this way. It separates each thing, but everybody always knows like I have the three pen names. So I'm like, if you don't like this, you can try this or this. So
Have you? I mean, I would assume you may have, but in your fantasy, slash subcategory horror, have you found yourself bringing some of the, romance part of it into it, right? Or do you really keep it separate and kind of just focus on more the action, the fantasy, and the horror part of it?
no, I do have some romance in the book series, because since they're young adult, I make sure it's clean, so
Yeah.
like nothing major goes on.
Would you, or maybe you already have, would you ever attempt more like a darker gothic uh, romance, or is that what your romance are kind of based on?
um, well, they have like some dark in it. The vampire ones, they like they kill and drink blood and all that. So I try to blend different things into it.
Okay. And for the viewers, are you? I'm assumed you're always writing, right? When you have
Yeah.
60 books, you're kind of always going at it, which most of us try to just keep going at it. But what are you currently working on? And again, share only what you're comfortable with, or what you want to kind of talk about.
I have like 4 different projects going on. Like I write one, like a piece in one, and then I switch to a different one. I think that's why I have so many books, is because I write multiple different books at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, and it does it for me too. It kind of works better that way too when I'm kind of going back and forth because it gives you a little bit of a break from one. You
Yeah.
can kind of come back a little fresher to attack that story again.
Yeah.
So I do understand that approach to it because it does work well for me also. Um, the ones you're working on right now, are these? I know you said you have 4 different ones. Are these intended to be standalones? Are these intended to be series? Are they a part of a series you're working on?
Yeah, they're all parts of different series. But I am working on my first horror series too, so that's something different thrown in.
Yeah, that's actually my favorite genre. So looking forward to what you do in that one. So I didn't really ask you this question. Are you all self-published? Are you a mixture of small indie press and self-published, or what is your journey as an author like?
Right now I am all self-published. I was signed like over the many years under different publishing companies, but I always left because I was always felt like I wasn't like one of the top priorities. Like they all had their favorite
Yeah.
authors, and like you would be sitting on the back burner. And like the last one I had so many books, and they just left me sitting on the back burner. So I'm like, well, I'm just sitting here. I might as well write. So that's how I was able to write a lot of my books during that time.
Um, I mean that's definitely a good description of the differences between self-publishing and then going with either smaller presses or even the big ones. Is that you may not be a priority, right? You may not be a priority if you're not the author for them that they really want to market and push out there.
Yeah.
Um, have you found yourself really enjoying more of the self-publishing side? Because even when you're with a small press, you're still doing all your own marketing and everything. So,
Yeah.
and but I would assume the biggest, because all mine are self-published, but I assume the biggest pro of it always is really you have full control, right? It's
Yeah.
your voice for the book. It's your image for the covers. Everything is you, right? You don't have to count on somebody telling you no. We want to do it this way. It's really everything you want to approach it at.
Yeah.
And then going forward, do you feel, unless you're still signed, but do you feel like you're just gonna focus on the self publishing, or are you gonna try to still kind of go in between?
Oh, I'm just gonna focus on self-publishing because there's no, time crunch or anything. You're at your own pace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then again, I'm very interested when you come out with the horror collection, because again, that's my favorite genre. But
Yeah.
is there anything that you're not working on right now, but maybe in the future something you really would like to do, or a storyline that you've kind of had? And I know you said when I think of an idea, I try to write the first book to get it in.
Yeah.
Is there something kind of you've had kind of nagging at you that you're like, I really think I want to do this, but maybe you haven't done? Is something you want to try to do in the future?
Um, yeah, I have like the ideas for those ones. I have them like written down, but I haven't, started writing them yet.
Hmm. Okay. And as an author in general, how has, because it's the most difficult for all of us, how has marketing gone for you? I mean, are you primarily doing it through socials? Do you actually try to do some promotions with companies or on the side, more for your self publishing because some of the houses may have helped a little bit on that, but primarily it's still you as an author doing it.
Yeah, I'm still struggling with that because when I was signed to all those different companies, not one of them taught us how to, market. They would just, do everything and then throw it to you and be like, okay, here, go figure it out. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's really the struggle. I think for all of us authors, I think that the biggest struggle really is marketing because you know it's really it's really getting eyes on your product, right? Because every author, every genre, no matter what it is, there's an audience for it, right? But can you find that audience, right?
Yeah,
Can you get your books in front of the audience? Is always the struggle. I mean, that's part of the reason I did this podcast is try to help, all the other authors, all the indie authors like me, to try to get out there because maybe I can post it somewhere and maybe your audience is like, oh, I never heard of her, let me go check out her stuff, and at least that helps you get in front of some of the audience. But yeah, I mean, that's from every author I've always talked to, that is the biggest struggle. How do you get in front of the audience, right? At least TikTok has made it a little more out there where you get a scene at least, but it's what eyes get on you, who's seen your post. It's still a struggle, right? It really is,
yeah,
and it's the one thing that all authors that are starting out need to understand is you know even if your book is the greatest thing ever written, doesn't matter because sometimes nobody's going to see
no
it.
one's gonna
You
see
have
it.
to
Yeah,
figure
they
out a way
they keep
to
you
get it out
stuck in that 200 to 300 view, and like that's where I'm stuck.
there. Yeah, I know. I know. I know you were also on Twitter like me, so same
Yeah,
thing. I'm always trying to boost it over there to try to get out there, at least to get different audiences to see it on both sides. But it really is the biggest struggle for all of us, right?
yeah, yeah.
Has your approach to writing changed at all over your course as an author? And maybe I'm not talking about how you write in terms of style or something, but maybe how you approach it. Because as you mentioned, you're doing some self-publish, you did some with a publishing house, right? And each of those are different approaches because, like you said, there are deadlines. You need to give them something by this point. Has your writing changed over that course from when you started out, saying doing your first book, to now in terms of how you approach it?
Um, hmm. I don't know why that's a hard question, but it's hard. My brain's like, it's not.
Well, because there may, I mean, honestly, there may not be any big change, right? If you started out with a publishing house, really, it's just having a deadline. So you're having to structure your time to say, okay, I know I need to turn this in by, right now we're in January, so I got to turn this in by February 10th. So I need to have this written by then, as opposed to when you're a self publisher, you don't have a deadline. You have maybe an internal deadline you set for yourself. Like I want to get the first draft of this done by here, but it's a different approach, right? Because
Yeah.
it's on you to hit those dates where the other one you kind of have to, right? You kind of have to hit the date. Um, but your approach may not change. You might have been already kind of structured in how you write and everything where it didn't really change along the way.
Yeah, I don't think it might change much then. I just sit down and write.
Yep. And then last question for you is, is there something you wish you would have done differently or you would have known at the beginning of your author journey that you know now that you like, that kind of would have made my life a lot easier back then?
Yeah, like I shouldn't have signed with the very first publisher, or
Yeah.
just like kept signing with them because I'm just like that's when I just kept noticing that pattern, and I was just like, maybe I should just do this on my own.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's a big thing you see right now in social media for in the writing community is unfortunately you have a little bit of a separation between the ones that are traditionally and some of the big houses kind of saying it's completely different when you self-publish or small press and it's not the same. You should try to go through the traditional, but it is not for everybody, right? And
Yeah,
it's a shame that there is that thought process because not being signed to a big house is not anything against your talent or your books, right? It's really you have to have that one person you kind of get excited about your book to get you in the door, and then they have to get somebody excited to sign you, and that's great, right? But again, you're going through maybe one or two people that you have to get, and of course, not everybody's going to love what you do. And your stuff could be the greatest, but if it's not really what they enjoy, they're not going to. They're just going to say, "No, we're not interested," right? So
yeah,
it's something that that mindset hopefully starts to change where it's not looked down upon because you do have a lot more control when you're self-publishing, right?
yeah,
And like I said, unless you get signed by the big guys, the big four, you're still marketing yourself, right? You're still having to market yourself, even on the smaller publishing houses and presses. You're still doing all the work, right? But
yeah,
you lose a little bit of control, so you might as well just keep all control and kind of do it on your own, right?
yeah,
And that's a good point. That when you first start out, you kind of think that's the way to go because the indie self-publishing only really started getting more popular in the last couple of years. So
yeah,
when you first start out, you don't think going that route. You're just like, I need to sign with somebody to do this. And like you said, you probably wish you wouldn't have, right? You said I should
yeah.
have just done it like this from the start.
Hmm.
Um, and again, it's a great point for all young authors that are trying to get out there. One, don't get down on yourself when you get the rejections, right? Because it's
Yeah.
not a rejection of your talent. It's just that person didn't either understand it or didn't like it, right? And
Hmm.
one of the biggest things is, and like I said, I appreciate that you're doing this. Is you came from a different angle. Like you're like, I want different vampires, right?
Yeah.
And on a traditional house, they may say, well, wait a minute, this is not the vampires everybody loves. It's got to be these vampires, and that's the thing, right? It's
Yeah.
not that yours is wrong. It's just that's not what they want or not what they're
Yeah.
looking for, right? So
Hmm.
that's an excellent point that you went the other direction and you really found that that's not really what you like, right? You really feel like this other way is the way to go.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed the conversation and going through your books. Do you have anything that's coming out soon in terms of release? So, when I release this thing, I'm going to have a bunch of links to whatever you want me to post. Like we'll put the links of the series that we discussed, the two series. And then if you want to put links to your web page, your socials, whatever you want, I'll have on the actual description of the YouTube video. But is there anything coming up, within January or February, a release date that we can kind of put out there for you, so everybody, or at least the ones that follow me, I can kind of get out there and let people know you have coming.
I my latest release I just released on January 1st of this year.
Okay.
It was a Rebel's Flame that was in a whole new book series.
Okay.
So I just had that one come out.
Okay, so when we do post this, I will put that book cover on the video as well, and I'll make sure the link's down there so we can
Okay.
get that going. And this way, they can check out your other two series. I mean, they can check out all your books actually on your author page, but then they can also check out your new release. Again, I want to thank you for coming on. I really did enjoy the conversation.
Thank you
I
for
want to
having me.
remind, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I want to remind the viewers that again, I will leave all of Bria's links below for you to be able to find her books and her socials, anything to be able to contact her. All my links will be in the video below as well. Please leave a comment if you have any questions for either of us, or just let us know what you enjoyed about the episode. Definitely don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the notification so you don't miss all these amazing authors coming up. And just want to thank you, viewers, for watching. And thank you again, Bria, for coming on and kind of giving everybody a good idea about who you are and the books that you have out there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye, viewers.